The Bat computer has been hacked, and you found the latest video from Optibotimus.
What's up, you beautiful collectors and action figure fans? Once again, it's the one and only Optibotimus coming at you with another video review. And on today's episode, thanks to the absolutely incredible support by the folks over at Mondo, we're going to be taking a look at their new reissue 1/6 scale Batman from Batman the Animated Series. For a lot of people, including myself, this version of Batman is our childhood. Hot off the trails of the 1989 Michael Keaton Batman, Batman the Animated Series came along and absolutely stole our hearts. And with that, created one of the most iconic representations of the Batman character that we have ever gotten. Voiced by the legendary Kevin Conroy, who went on to not only voice Batman in this animated series, but in a slew of animated movies, video games, and even got to appear to us as the live-action Bruce Wayne on the CW show Flash, or honestly, I don't know, it was a crossover event. And honestly, I'm not entirely sure which show it was, because all of them kind of mixed in. And while this review was actually planned a little while ago, the figure actually just recently showed up. And most of us now know that that iconic voice for Batman, Kevin Conroy, has sadly passed away. And for me and a lot of people, that really hit us pretty hard. But I knew I still wanted to do this review, and hopefully you guys enjoy it. For the package though, you can see an absolutely gorgeous image of Batman right there in the front. And I really love the contrast here. You got that very stark image of Batman with a very bright image in the background, which is opposite to what you would probably think, with Batman being a shadow of the night. Having the yellow for the background is definitely a sharp contrast, but really makes the art here pop. Come around to the side of it, and you can see you got the Batman Animated Series logo there with that right down here at the bottom. Other side here has that as well. Come around to the back of the package, you got a really cool kind of artistic image of the Batman logo, which kind of looks like, I don't even know how to describe that. Kind of looks almost like data patterns or something. That's really kind of cool. Then when you come around to the front, it does have a little bit of a Velcro section. You can see the inside here. I've obviously taken the figure out, but you got this really nice open window that fully showcases the figure. And then you got that same... Oh, you know what I didn't even notice? That's Gotham City there. Those are skyscrapers. Wow. Haha. Never even noticed that. Come around to the side over here. You got tissue paper. And it says, reports of a huge bat creature the size of a man. Remind you of anybody? Which was a line from the very first episode of it, and that's kind of funny to me that I didn't notice that those were skyscrapers. But super excited about getting this guy. So without further ado, let's get Batman out here and see how cool he actually is. And here we have the new Mondo 1/6 scale Batman from Batman the Animated Series opened up and out of its packaging. Originally released some time ago, Batman here proved to be immensely popular, and the folks over at Mondo decided to re-release him. Starting off first with his accessories, if we come down to take a closer look at those, in addition to a pair of fisted hands that you see here on him, he comes with several other hands that are specifically designed to help hold his accessories. The one that doesn't is this one, and I love it. It's just a random thumbs up because, hey, thumbs up. Why not? One thing that I absolutely love that they're doing, that's something that other 6 scale companies don't do, is include full wrist pegs with all the additional hands. I love that. That makes it so much easier in terms of swapping out the hands and quickly changing his poses and style, I guess. So you do get this. You also do get 2 hands that are more designed to look like he's holding his batarangs. You can see how the finger itself is in a kind of triggerish sort of thing, kind of like that. But as you can see, you can take one of these batarangs fairly easily and slide it in. Now, you do have to be fairly creative with the positioning inside there, just to kind of wedge it in there, because you can see it doesn't go all the way down, so you can get it in there. You just have to be, like I said, kind of creative and just kind of wedge it in and kind of friction it inside there. So you do get a right and left hand that does that. You also do get a right and left hand that is done up in a really strange kind of position where it's like this, but that's designed to hold his little grapple gun. You can see that what you do with this is you have the little thumb section here. You take this, literally wedge that inside there like that, and then you have the thumb in that area where now the barrel of it is kind of separated in the gap that's between the fingers, and you can have him shooting his grapple gun, which is fantastic, and you can use both right and left hands for that. And then you have a right and left hand that is done more in a holding sort of position, which realistically there's not a lot of hands here that, or not a lot of accessories that you're going to use this for, but it is a gripping kind of hand, so maybe you can take that little, I guess, is this a tape recorder or a tape, and kind of just wedge that in there. It doesn't really do too much. I mean, honestly, I don't really know why you would need this, because he doesn't come with any sort of gun. Maybe holding the wire on this or something like that, but you can get creative with it, I guess, if you really wanted to. You may be able to take the batarang and kind of wedge that in there as well. It definitely is more him just holding it, I guess. Well, and then he's got, I guess you could say, this little accessory, which I think is just like a spray thing. You can wedge this down inside, have him just kind of hold that. So you have one of those where you can utilize it to kind of do whatever you really want, I kind of suppose, but it's definitely something that is probably less specific than the other ones. But all of them, as you could see, have this really nice cell shading on there. When you come in and take a closer look, you can kind of see it. You have the blue, you have the black, all just kind of designed to highlight some areas. While he probably wore just black the entire time, there was always a cell shading from like the moonlight or something like that. So that's where a lot of that blue kind of comes up, and it really kind of breaks up a lot of that. As you can see, though, all those hands work very nicely with the accessories, such as this little, like I said, it's like a tape, although it's not really a tape, because there's this little section here. Maybe it's meant to be just a videotape or something like that, but you have that real nice painted detail on there. You can see the gray, white, a little bit of gray there at the top. You do get two different batarangs. You have this one, which is a little bit more rounded, whereas this one has a much more pointy aspect to it, which both of these look absolutely fantastic. I love those. Those are really sharp. You also do get one of these, which I think is like a batarang as well, but it is just designed to kind of more or less look like the little bat logo right there. Solid piece of just molded black plastic, but again, really nice. You do have, like I was showing you, this little, I guess this is some kind of like a spray. It kind of looks like it's a kind of spray thing. So you have that little piece. Again, that's just molded in a black plastic, but still looks good nonetheless. I showed you his little grapple gun with amazing amount of detail on the inside. You can see the little fingers inside there. The grapple section itself, that's nicely molded and painted in there. You got the little red trigger there at the top. Of course, you can see that he holds it kind of weird. But then you also do get this one that has this wire, which you're going to want to kind of play with this to kind of straighten this out. But in doing so, you then create this sort of blast effect of sorts with the gun and the launcher kind of shooting out the actual claw section, which is really nice. And this is really long. I'm kind of surprised at how long this is, but I'm just going to straighten this out. And then again, it's a wire, so that's really nice so that you can kind of get that looking about as good as you can get it. And like I said, that's really long. It's probably a good 2 feet or so, so I don't know if you're able to see it. Oh yeah, you can kind of see it. That's about 2 feet long or so. So you do get that. Couple other accessories for his head sculpts here. You got this mask section, which is really cool. Easiest way to kind of do this, though, I would say, is put this underneath, kind of put that over his nose area, and then take the little strap and very carefully, I've seen some people kind of snap this, but you want to put that there, put that over, and bring that around like that. And then you can put this on, and you can have him wearing that little scuba diver mask sort of thing, which that's real cool. Love that. And then take that off. It's easier to go that way than it is to kind of go around the top and then go over everything. But you also have these little, kind of reminds me of Cyclops from X-Men. But you're going to want to take this, again, stretch this over that, and this will come up over his eyes, and they're just like little binoculars that fit over his eyes very nicely. But again, kind of makes him look like Cyclops, which that's fine. You know, I don't mind it. I think that's really cool though. Again, real nice attention to detail. In terms of the extra heads, you can see he's got a neutral one on there. I'll take a look at that a little bit more. This one here though is more designed to give kind of a grimacing kind of look. But you can see great detail on here. You can see some nice cell shading with the definition for his face, but then also here at the top with that blue kind of at the top around the ears and everything. Even when you look down at the bottom, you see a little bit of cell kind of shading right there underneath his nose, which is really nice to see. But gorgeous head sculpt on here. This absolutely nails how the Batman animated series version of Batman looked. That looks really cool. But you also get another one with the cowl on, and this one is him smirking, which I think is just funny. That goes along perfectly with where to go. It goes perfectly with, of course, this thumbs up hand. I love that. Hey, kid, good job. So really very nice. But you also do get this very cool unhelmeted or cowlless version of Bruce Wayne sculpt, so to speak. And that's where this comes in. You're going to take this, you're going to take that head off, you're going to kind of drape this over that neck peg, and then this is going to sit right here, and you're going to have the cowl kind of behind him. I'll show you that here in a bit, but I love the fact that they thought to include that. And I kind of like that they have him looking very concerned and angry-ish. I mean, I have heard some people say that they would have liked a more neutral, more happy-looking Bruce Wayne, but this is not a Bruce Wayne figure. This is a Batman figure. And sometimes Batman would take his cowl off, revealing his Bruce Wayne head underneath. And so in this kind of an instance, this is the face sculpt or portrait I would expect. That just works perfectly because it's like he just ripped that mask off. So he's still in kind of Batman mode, but doesn't need to be fully covered. So I think that is really very, very cool. But one thing that you can see that the highlights here really do also kind of accentuate the sculpt. That is a wonderful kind of texture right there, and you can see that the lips are sculpted in there. Really very nice. You also do get this Hodak, or I forgot what this was. There was an evil supercomputer that cloned a bunch of people, including Batman, and this was one of them. And if I'm not mistaken, as this is a reissue, this is a new head sculpt to come along with it. So it's nice that they included something different, but you can see you got a slightly open, kind of two-face sort of look here. This side here, slightly open mouth with the regular Batman thing, and then this side here, you can see it's torn, revealing the underside. You can even see the tear on the cowl going across the top, and then the head sculpt with this really cool endoskeleton, kind of very Terminator-esque underneath. Absolutely love that. Truthfully, I don't imagine myself really using a lot of these different head sculpts. The more neutral one that's on him is probably going to be the one that I'm going to use. The one that I would probably use second would probably be the Bruce Wayne sculpt, followed by maybe the more angry looking one, and then the smirk, I guess, and then finally the Hodak one. That's probably what I would use in terms of order, I guess. But he also does come with this really nice Batman stand. Now, what I love about it is you can see that it's not just painted. It is a separate piece, and you can see the depth going all the way around. I love that. Very cool resemblance to the actual logo there. You have the stand right here, which nicely comes in, locks into place. If I can find the little, there we go. But what's nice is, even from this angle, it doesn't bleed over. I mean, they size that perfectly where it doesn't cut out that look. So from the top section, you can see that it still fits perfectly. And then you have the adjustable cradle here. Now, one thing that I will talk about as I get further into the review is that Batman, just by the nature of the design of the character, is always going to be fairly top heavy and have a hard time balancing because the feet are fairly small. Now, one thing that I have noticed about people's figures is they sit it there and he kind of wants to topple over. If you get the legs positioned just right, you get the ankles in a good spot, he'll stand, and you can see that he's standing there pretty decently. But see, as you move him, he will have a tendency to want to topple forward or back. That's just the way that the design is going to be. But also I have noticed that the leg is a little bit loose here, but realistically, I don't know a lot of people that are going to display him without the stand. So for this, it's very simple. You put it there, kind of set him there, and you have no problems with him standing now. And now coming in to take a closer look at him, again, this is an absolutely wonderful representation of Batman from the animated series. And up close here, you can see a lot of that cell shading that I was talking about. You have the nice black and blue highlighting here in the cape, with the blue kind of representing like a light source. But you see that on the cowl coming down here in the cape, come around to the back, you can see it carrying over to the shoulder area of the actual cape as well. And then when you look at the back, the entire back section of it, or inside I guess, is done in that blue coloring as well. It is a hard plastic cape, which again does kind of limit you in terms of the poses. A lot of them are just going to be kind of standing upright, but I still think that it is extremely well done. And here you get a closer look at that head sculpt, which this is probably my favorite, the very stern, very neutral look. If you did want to swap it out, it is on a ball joint. It is a fairly easy ball joint, almost to the point where sometimes moving the head around makes the head come off easily, but I'd rather have that than have to fight with it. And then bringing in, like, for example, the little cowl piece, putting that there, bringing in the Bruce Wayne sculpt, popping that on. Is that going to pop on there? Oh, that one's hard to get on there. There we go. But you can see with that kind of draped here on the back, that's really cool. I love that. And again, just gives you kind of that Bruce Wayne vibe, but realistically, he's still Batman at this point. He's just not wearing the mask. He's not in Bruce Wayne mode, which is why I really like that very stern look on his face as well. And then for the other ones, you just, again, pop that off. You're going to want to take that piece off then. And then let's bring in, oh, well, I just pulled off the entire ball joint. Hold on. There we go. That entire, so that is a dumbbell ball joint, but let's pop that on. Get that in there. There we go. And then here's him kind of smirking. You're just going to put that right on. Come on, get in there. There we go. So again, I don't know necessarily why you would want to have him smirking unless you're doing that thumbs up thing, but I think that's kind of funny. And then again, just for the purposes, let's get that on there as well so you can see kind of how that looks on them. And that is really cool as well. So if you had a couple of these, that definitely allows you to kind of have a completely different character for it, which I like. So that comes off a little bit easier than I would like to, but I mean, realistically, that just kind of, come on, wiggle that out. There you go, just pop that off and then get that in here. I mean, it's just a ball joint sort of thing, so you can easily put that back in. But looking at the rest of the body, again, gorgeous detail with the very simple, very matte gray color throughout the entire thing. Gorgeous Batman logo that is textured as you feel it. That is a textured piece, not just like tampographed on there, so that's really nice. You got some cell shading down here, but there's not a lot of other cell shading throughout the rest of them other than the black section. So that's a nice kind of attention to detail to kind of bring out his abdomen area. But he doesn't have that on any other part of his body, realistically. You have a little bit more of her in his little short area. Gorgeous utility belt right there. Goes all the way around. Come down here to the legs. And again, you can see a little bit of that cell shading in the leg itself. But in terms of detail, he doesn't really need a lot. I mean, like I said, this is an accurate representation of how he looked in the cartoon show. So it makes sense for it to be fairly simple. Articulation-wise, you can see that the neck is on that double joint. You can kind of get a little bit of a gap right there, but you can kind of hide that fairly easily. The shoulders here are on pin hinge joints, so they hinge outward. They also swivel fairly decently. The bicep, or the elbow here, is kind of interesting. So you got two joints right here, but instead of having two fairly ugly ones, I mean, they're noticeable, that's for sure, but you got this little spacer in between, so you can get a further than 90-degree bend here, but when you have them straight down, doesn't necessarily look all that bad. I like that little filler in space right there. But you can also rotate him here at the elbow itself. The wrists do move forward and back. They're on those little joint things there, so you can rotate that, do all that stuff as you see fit. The abdomen area, the other ones pop off hard. That one stays on, or the other ones pop on difficultly and pull the other thing off. This one kind of sits on there. But you can see that he does have a little bit of a diaphragm joint. It's not a ton, but there's a little bit of rotation. Same thing when you come down here to the waist. There's a little bit of a ball joint there, but not a ton. It's oval shaped, so it makes sense. Hips do move about that far back and forward. They don't really get a lot of range of motion, which is fine because, again, I think standing is going to be the best bet for him. He does have some ratchet joints moving in and out. I do kind of wish it was a little bit stronger because you can, again, see how loose that leg joint is. And this one's not as bad, but you can still see it drops. This one much faster, but it does create a problem when you are trying to get him to stand decently. You do have to really kind of have some patience in terms of the balancing of them, and you can kind of see that it makes it a little bit easier if you have the legs go backwards. The knees here on these double joints as well, they also do rotate. Not a ton of rotation in there as well, unless you have it completely straight. Once you bend it, you have a oval shaped thing there, so it's going to kind of limit some of that. Oh, you do also have a little bit of rotation at the upper part of the thigh, but you do have that joint there. The ankles also do move forward and back on fairly soft ratchet joints. They also have that hacky sack pose, which I like, so you can get a wider pose with them and get him to kind of stand there and kind of get a semi-dynamic look for him. I mean, it doesn't have to be super dynamic, but I mean, you could definitely get a fairly dynamic look for Batman and have him still look pretty cool, especially if you're going to take something like the grapple gun and have him shooting like he's about to whiz through the air. In general, though, I'm extremely happy with how this guy turned out. The overall design and attention to detail to recreate the look from Batman the Animated Series is spot on. And he comes with a ton of accessories. 4 different head sculpts, multiple weapons, as well as a couple other little gizmos that Batman has used, really help to round out a pretty good value in my opinion. A lot of times we're used to real world characters having 1/6 scale representations, but Mondo has done something different. They decided to give us 1 scale representations of cartoon characters, which isn't always easy because we're used to seeing them in 2 dimension, not giving us a lot of sense of depth, which a lot of times makes a figure kind of look off. But what they've been able to do with their 1/6 scale figures is really make it look like those on-screen representations jumped off the screen and into our lives real world style. The only real issue that I have with them would be the hip area. That might be something that I can fix, and hopefully that's just on my copy of the figure. But a lot of that also has to do with the fact that the overall design of the character, in terms of the top heavy upper part and the very small lower part, no matter what could have posed a problem. But that's where I think something like this display stand is going to be very helpful. Sometimes you don't need the display stand. In this case, you're going to. But that's not a bad thing in my opinion. It allows you to really nicely display him with a really cool looking stand. And despite that minor flaw, I still absolutely think this guy is worth adding to your collection. As I said before, Batman the Animated Series really did establish itself as one of the best representations of the Batman character that we have ever gotten. And this figure is definitely worthy of what that cartoon gave to us. So without a doubt, guys, I would recommend picking this up. I know a lot of places have him sold out right now, but I'll put a link to Mondo's website down in the video description, where you can head on over there and check out availability on him, as well as the rest of their 1/6 scale collection. But beyond that, guys, that's about it. Once again, I want to send a huge shout out to the folks over at Mondo for helping to make this review possible. And as always, please remember that the real trouble with the world is that too many people grow up. Thank you all so much for watching and taking the time to be a kid.
This is Kevin Conroy, and I am the goddamn Batman.